leaders, thank you so much for taking time out of your week and weekend to prepare to lead and to lead and let children know how important they are to you and to God. So thank you for leading today on July 3rd. I hope you're having a good weekend. And today we start the division of the New Testament, and we will be in the Gospels. We will celebrate the fact that we have finished the Old Testament, etc., etc. We will include the point that between the book of Micah and the book of Matthew, there's about 400 years between the Old Testament and New Testament, and about 2,100 years over the course of the Old Testament, depending how you do those numbers. So approximately 2,500 years. Not 2,100 doesn't cover the Old Testament, it covers from the beginning of the patriarchs, so Abraham. So about 2,500 years they have been waiting for the Messiah, actively waiting for the Messiah. And so now he has come, and we get to talk about that and celebrate that in the Gospels, that the Gospels is the enactment of God's rescue plan and deliverance. So brief differences on those books. Matthew was a Jew. He was a tax collector. We've talked off and on about what that means to the Jewish people. He refers a lot to the Old Testament prophecies, and he's hoping to convince his fellow Jews that Jesus is the Messiah that God has promised. So his whole purpose is the book is written from a Jew to Jews for the purpose of convincing them those things that they had been looking forward to are fulfilled by the person of Jesus as the Messiah. Mark's book is shorter than all of the others. He most likely wrote it while he was in Rome, and while Paul was in chains. So Mark wanted to reassure the faithful that Jesus was who he said he was, so they could stand strong in the face of persecution. That's why there's lots of little stories, super action-packed. It's a fun one for kids to read, but his whole point was proving that Jesus did what he said he would do. He was what they said he was going to be. We could believe in him and trust in him even when life is really hard in the face of persecution, particularly. Luke was not one of the apostles. He was a doctor. He has taken all of the writings and his growth as Christian a little bit later down the road, and he has put it all together for a concise book. He's incredibly detailed, and the whole purpose of his book, his gospel, is to convince the readers to believe in Jesus, that Jesus is the Messiah. He is the Savior. Finally, John's gospel is the most unique of the four, and his whole purpose is that Jesus is a very loving Savior. He actually writes about lots of different events, and he does them in a different order, chronological order, than the others. So he's not as concerned about getting them in this happened here, then this, then this, then this. He puts them in the order that he feels is the most makes the most impact for who Jesus is as a Savior, and that he is love. He includes lots of signs and miracles because he's showing the love and the grace and the compassion of Jesus. And he also has he includes more theological discussions between Jesus and others than some of the others do, for the purpose of proving that this loving Savior is the Messiah, that this loving person is the Messiah. He is the Savior. So that's super quickly what the differences are in the Gospels. And then in the physical room, they'll be playing musical chairs using the Old and New Testament songs, and creative application will be using peg people to tell different stories they can remember about Jesus. Maybe it's miracles, maybe it's things that he taught, things like that, but using the little peg people and having a story time. All right, cool. Thank you for leading.